much for joining us today. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So where are you right now? Is this your artist den? What are we looking at?
This is Artist Den. It's just a small studio space attached from my house where I do all this, and so behind me got art and whatnot, stuff that's mine, but stuff that's inspirational from other artists and other friends, things like that.
Absolutely. So I think most people would have heard the name of yours from Everdell, but obviously your history in artist work in games goes back a long way. What was the start for you? Where did it all begin for you?
Gosh, well, back to the relevant stuff. I was always interested in art in high school and all of my life, but I actually went to college, planning to go into 3D modeling, in either video games or feature animation or anything like that. My college had a lot of feature animation influence, and so by the time I left, I shifted towards concept and visual development, which is more of idea making for the entertainment industry. I graduated and straight to working as a concept art artist at Ubisoft, and I was there for 7 years, working on stuff like Ghost Recon, Heroes of Magic, Assassin's Creed, things like that, doing character and environment design. But I was developing my freelance career on the side, doing things like fantasy illustration for Fantasy Flight or other companies, but eventually I always knew I wanted to go full-time freelance. I dabbled in that in college, not in the same industry, but it was always something in my mind I wanted to get back. So in 2013, I left my job and crossed the country and started a new career just illustrating freelance, and that stayed in video games for quite some time. It wasn't until really 2018 with Everdell. I'd done some projects before then in board games, but that was really when it kind of switched to board games almost exclusively, and that's what it's been ever since, really.
Wow. So do you think your future now is much more in the board game industry rather than video games?
Definitely. I mean, I've been a board game guy. I was making my own stuff when I was in high school. I had a friend who were just like coming up with games and make them on our own. And I've always been a hobby gamer. I mean, for a long time. It's just for whatever reason it was never ever something I could do professionally until recently. It just didn't seem like I don't know. It just didn't. I wasn't aware of how big the industry was until very recently.
Well, I guess you're a massive contributor towards the size of the industry. I mean, Everdell's such a huge success, and the art absolutely goes a long way towards that. I'm interested. How would you describe the art in Everdell? What would its sort of technical, scientific description be? How would you describe it?
It's certainly all digital art. I work 100% digital these days. That's part of what concept video game industry did. It took me into the realm as opposed to working with traditional paints and pencil and paper. Though I use that for things. So I don't know how to describe it. I mean, my style has always geared to be kind of a middle ground between things that are realistic and stylized. I like stylized things, but I love all different types of style of artwork. But I've done very cartoons in my career, and I've done things that are very realistic. And I've felt like my special was in the middle. And I think Everdell is kind of like that. There's realism in the in painting the characters, locations, and things like that. Lighting is, at least my attempt to be realistic with lighting and whatnot, but enough stylization, enough whimsicalness to make it so it has some charm and approachability that or at least interest. If I were to just be painting literal, completely realistic squirrels, it might not be as fun.
Yeah, I mean, it feels so magical and it feels so deeply thematic, and it just absorbs you into it. And all the shots, all the art in it, just feels like every single time. The game takes ages for me to play because I'm sort of just pulled into it as I play it, and sort of sitting there, okay, when are you going to play the card, Jim? But it just, I think you got to appreciate what you've created there. You've created a whole world. But coming on to creating worlds, I'm interested to talk about a project you're working on now, the Wanderer's Guide. It just seems so massive, the scale of the project you're doing. How would you describe it? Because it feels massive.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty massive. It's definitely going to be the largest project I've worked on. And it's so it's basically a fully illustrated fantasy atlas, but with no text and no story attached to it. So it's kind of a funny, it's world building, but kind of in ways not building, because we're not defined. It's me and a partner. We're on this. The idea being basically creating a book that, particularly for the RPG market, they can't, DMs and other RPG players can open this and go, okay, we're going to jump into this city, and this is the inspiration for what we're going to be doing. And a lot of books have done that, where they're basically a resource to play on. So there's a grid, there's all these different things going on, but this is meant to be the emphasis is on immersion into the feel of the place. So it may not necessarily, there are going to be tokens and things part of it that will be resources available for for the players to go to an adventure out and go, okay, there's a wizard's tale that's over here, so there's going to be a token that might move and can be in places depending on the adventure you're going on. But we didn't want to define the world ahead of time and say, okay, this place is called this, and if you this road to here, it's going to this place, and it's called this, would make everybody except 1% the people playing it, they'd go, well, that's not the place I'm playing in, so that's not going to work. So it's meant to be something usable for any RPG system you're working with, and on a side note, I think of it as one world building tool. I'm not building a world with that atlas, but I can use it, and I'm even in my own stuff. I'm just kind of experimenting with taking critters and saying, okay, let's take this on the Wanderer's map, the world map, and go, all right, well, where do you guys want to go? And I'll ask my friends, and they'll vote and say, okay, let's explore this space. Okay, what would it look like to have, some Cordell-ish critters live in this location and play with that? But so anyway, it's something that I find as a creative tool. I don't. My kids are into D&D and I've played plenty in my life, but that's something I'm doing as much right now. So I'm going to be taking in you that specific application, but as a creative tool. Like, I'm excited to make it, but I'm excited to have it on my shelf, because I'll probably open it up and want to forget what some deep dark caverns might like. I might pull that up and go, okay, I can see where I can go with this, this story or this world.
Sounds amazing. What stage is the project at the moment?
We're going to probably have maybe 10 dozen different map, mostly done. Certainly a level that would be, you can see exactly what's going on, but maybe the full polish that I'll put on in the final, probably into 12 of those the campaign. And then I will actually start on the final artwork. I set aside January through April, just work on the artwork for this. Mm-hmm. And with that time, we're planning to have 60 pages of full illustrated for plans in the future. If it goes well this time, we have some ideas for future versions as well.
Amazing. I mean, I can't see how this is going to be anything other than just an absolute Kickstarter phenomenon. But I'd imagine for you've been involved in Kickstarters as an artist before. But is this the first project that you've been lead on Kickstarter?
No. I probably won't be the lead on the Kickstarter side of things, at least. I mean, I'm a partner in the project, but that I'm working with, their strength is the management marketing side of things, and I just had to spend my time in the art. Other projects I've worked on, I've designed some games in the past. I kickstarted a game a couple years ago called Plane Crafters. I did the artwork, and me and a partner designed the game completely 50-50. I probably took the lead on the production and marketing side of projects. So I was the one answering all the questions, sending the updates out, and things like that. It's a task for sure.
You're probably enjoying someone else going to be doing that this time, then, I imagine. Since Everdell, it must be that, I mean, your name means something to so many board gamers around the world. And when a game comes out that has an association with a name such as yours, people sit up and pay attention. And when a project like this that is, largely art-based, that is being done by an artist like yourself, that has, you've made yourself so well known, and you've become so well loved within the community. It just feels so exciting that you've kind of just said to yourself, you know what, the game that's going to be created by everyone who plays this. There's lots of things you can do with this. I'm just going to give you the art. I'm just going to give you the world. I'm just going to give you the starting point, and then what you do with that is up to you. I mean, if somebody came to you and said 5-10 years ago, here's this project that you can get involved with, this feels like the perfect one. Am I right in saying that? It just feels right up your street.
Well, I appreciate all your kind words. That's anyway. I no. This is definitely a project that's perfect for me. With the exception of I like the stories. So in a funny way, that this is definitely a project that I love and I'm very, very about. I'm just aching to tell the story myself. That's part of the what we're hoping to make this beneficial to more people. Is like I'm not going to be telling your story. I'm not. It's the line for the project is your world, your venture, and so it's but that is something that I'm like, oh dang it, I want to know exactly what this this happens in this castle and who it's the king who lives here. What's his backstory, and I want to draw him, and I want to draw these other things, and it is fairly not people independent, because there's actually going to be a large collection of NPCs that are available, but again, they're not there to say how you have to use this. They're just there in case you want to. So I love this. I love this project. I'm very excited. I hope it is a Kickstarter phenomenon, but I've also had just the nature of Kickstarter. I don't get too that in it, because I don't know what's going to happen. So
sure. I mean, that's the beauty of Kickstarter. But having been somebody who's never been involved in it from a business perspective like you have, I've only ever been involved from a backer. You just know certain things that are going to go crazy, and this feels like one of them. But I don't want to jinx it, but I just
thank you.
I don't see any way how this doesn't go insane. And I think from someone like me who loves board games and hasn't done much role playing, hasn't done a D&D at all, I think what Everdell did by bringing a lot of people from some pretty good but basic board games, Everdell I think was, everyone talks about gateway games. People don't really talk about next step gateway games. You don't go from Carcassonne and Catan to Twilight Imperium. You need that next step, and for me, Everdell was that perfect next step. If I'm trying to get somebody into board games, I'll play a classic gateway game with them, and then I'll put them in front of something like Everdell, and then you'll say to them, okay, so now you understand that games do a little bit more than what you thought of Monopoly and Cluedo, but now they're awesome, and they create this world and this environment that totally absorbs you. I feel like this project that you're doing now is going to be a similar sort of gateway experience for people like me to go from board games into the world of D&D. In short, what I'm saying is you've just taken all of my time away from the rest of my life. Like, I'm never going to work so much again.
Well, I apologize if that happens.
What other projects are you working on? I imagine once Everdell kicked in, everyone kind of drops you an email every 5 seconds saying, hey, do you want to be the artist for my game? What is it like being you post Everdell?
Oh boy, it's so nice to get all this praise from this side. My family could care less. They don't think anything of me. They just put me down all day long. No, no, it's wonderful. I feel. I mean, I don't see. It's funny when people talk about when you talk about the impact. I honestly, completely, genuinely don't see that side of things. And artists like myself are insecure time. Maybe I think I go back and forth between being completely utterly insecure and I should be giving up on art, and then some getting a little too thinking too high of myself. It goes back and forth, but I think most artists are like that. So anyway, what's it like? Now, since Everdell, I am very busy. This is true. I feel it makes me feel good to know that people that having my work as part of a game will make a big difference. It's interesting. I've had the opportunity, many things I can't announce. I started my career in board games taking over old properties, and a person who would reboot some stuff from Mid Planet, my first board, to the next Citadels, and several since then. But even more recently, like I'm gonna be taking a few successful brand and taking them over Wise, which has been a quite an honor, because a lot of the games are ones that I have a personal attachment to. I love the art for. The art just wasn't available, and I love the games. And so an opportunity would come. So it's a lot of busy stuff, a lot of things going on. So client work. I mean, we have Jamie Stegmaier announced the new mansion for Tapestry, which is great. Gosh, there's a lot of stuff that's coming out. I would not do well forget people to call many things. I have a project in the work myself, my own personal brand at Sen Studios, and so there's a lot of things that I have in the works. That one project that keeps getting put off, but is totally ready to go, is the second edition of a game called Lightning and Bolt, which is a co-op game meant specifically to be played with players of varying different experience in games. So really parents with kids, the mechanic of the game are scaled differently for different roles. So you're playing heroes and robots and sidekicks, and if you're feeling like it could be a kid who's Twilight Imperium and they play a certain role, and an adult might have a time with the choices and they might play the simpler role. It's a fun game, lots of charm in it, and something that scales really well for the number of players and player types. So that's something I'm really excited about. I have another project that is being shared, but has not been announced as far as what it actually is, and probably won't be for sometime mid next year. But it's probably the thing that I am. When it comes to story and my own things that I have created start, it's something probably is my most exciting thing. I'm looking forward to sharing, but it's at the moment. I think a Project A right now to everybody, but anyway, there's a lot to be shown soon.
Cool. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that. I've got to say, having listened to you talk there, when you first mentioned about not being aware of perhaps people like me's opinion of people like you, have you not been to a convention in the last couple of years? I mean, obviously not the last 6 months, but
sure.
Have you not been to a convention prior to that and sort of like seen people kind of come up to you and ask for a bunch of selfies and stuff, like sign my Everdell box? Like, does that not happen? Have you been in that situation?
Well, I go to convention, to Gen Con, before last year. I've been for the last 2 or 3 years, 4 maybe. Nobody knows who I mean, they know my art, but they don't know my face, and they don't know. So it's nobody's finding me going, you're Andrew Bosley, can you sign my stuff? It's I when I go, I'm not even normally signed up. Sometimes I am, but I'm not normally signed up with any of the booths to sign games or anything like that.
Right,
but
okay.
Sometimes, because for Everdell, because I'm good friends now with the whole team, I'll often just go and just be like, well, I'm tired of wandering everywhere. Would you like me to sit in some things for people, because maybe the designer James is there or whatever, and we'll do that, and that always feels good. That's probably my favorite part, but it's like, well, I'm sitting here and people are anyway, so they just, I'm just a guy that'll sign a thing, so they're just excited I'm saying, I'm sure, but honestly, from day to day, so I'm sure it's the same with all artists. It's like my time is in creating the artwork, and I have told my fans I have a very difficult time with my online presence. It's not it's where I feel the most comfortable being. I would love to know everybody that is fans and be friends with, because that's where I'm most comfortable. But the online side of stuff is a bit difficult for me. So I'm here in my office, just working 24 hours a day, and I don't really see the people's feedback.
I mean, it's just such a interesting thing for me, because you have created these worlds, these games, these environments, these stories that thousands, millions of people around the world are completely absorbed in. Like, I'll sit down, I'll play Everdell with my friends and my wife for an hour and a half, and we're in that world that you created, and it's happening over here at 9 p.m. UK time, and you've got no idea it's happening. And that sort of story is happening so many times. So many, it's probably happening right now, like somewhere in China and Japan and Australia, and I just think that's amazing. Like that's like the gift that you've given this world. So as much as you might not be aware of it, and as much as you might not hear it from everybody, on behalf of the world, because it's thoroughly appreciated, and it's brought a lot of fun to me, and I'm sure it will continue to do so. I cannot wait to see your Kickstarter go live and change my perspective on what D&D means to me, and be introduced into that world in the way that you have done with so many other games. Andrew, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.